Good morning. So I'm in Marthasville, Missouri, and on the Katy Trail, just getting ready to start on a bike ride. Jim is over there. So we started in Marthasville, and we are now in Treloar. I did not want to stop and take pictures or video because I wanted to make sure I got at least half of the ride behind me. So it took about an hour, and it's 7 miles. If you were to take the highway around to Marthasville, it's 8 miles. Where's the highway sign? Right there. But I'm going to take the trail. I did see a lot of interesting nature along the way, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So it's nice and quiet. We have not passed many people on this section of the trail. The plant that I'm focusing on right now are wild onions going to seed. I'm in an area that's a little more exposed, and I can see evidence of flooding here on the right side. And up ahead, there's a field of corn that is barely just getting started. And I think they probably planted this field a little late due to flooding this year. So the corn looks like it might, some of it right in the edge, on the edge here is maybe only a foot tall. It is taller out the back. Just saw a fox squirrel, and I mixed out with something here for Will. I was with Will. Let's see if I can bend down and get it. This is for Will, and I see another one up ahead, I think. These are just corn cobs that are empty, probably from last week. I was with Will the other day outside, and he found some turkey feathers, and I wanted to show him that he could make his own toy like the Native American boys did with a corn cob. So I'm going to collect a couple corn cobs. I'm seeing lots of horsetail again today. I'd really like to dig up some of this plant, see if I could transplant it and grow it someplace else. So this plant right here with little bitty seeds and small flowers at the top is called pepper grass, for people who like wild edibles. These wild onions are really, the tops of them are all different and interesting. Then of course right down here, if I can find it, is a good example of dandelion, which is an invasive species. You see the leaves? The leaves of the dandelion and the plantain plant tend to grow in a rosette pattern, and they are both invasive species, and because of that rosette pattern, they block out the growth of native plants. Here's a plant that my grandma used to talk about all the time, Grandma Isabel. It's called curly dock. It's going to seed, has kind of curly looking leaves, and behind it is, I can smell and see poison hemlock, which I've mentioned looks very similar to Queen Anne's lace, but the roots of poison hemlock could poison you, and the roots of wild carrot are edible for a good wild stew. So Grandma used to collect the leaves in the early spring of the hemlock. Not the hemlock, of the curly dock. And she would put them in the freezer and then cook them like spinach. Curly dock. I think, I'll have to look this up, but I think that the seed heads were pounded into flour, but I could be making that up. I'll have to see if I am remembering right. And back behind the grasses here, I see some daisies. Picture of daisies. So I got off my bike to show you. Here are some thistles. I think they're beautiful plants, beautiful flowers. They're prickly, you wouldn't want to pick them. It would hurt to try to pick them, but they're nice to look at. So I've seen 3 different kinds of clover along the trail just lately. So there's this red clover, and then there's another one that is yellow, another type of clover here. This is called hop clover. And then there's another kind of clover that's white, and that's just called white clover. So we are in farm country. So I want to tell you about goat's beard. One day I was riding on the Katy trail and I thought, wow, the dandelions are so huge here. And then I discovered, wait a minute, these aren't dandelions, they're growing from a different plant. And that's when I looked it up and found out that about goat's beard. So here's goat's beard. And some of the flower heads really look like huge dandelions. The only other way that they look like dandelions is that they have a yellow flower, but it does look a lot different from dandelion. I set my bike down up here so I can get some pictures. I did see a frog hopping across the trail, and that's not unusual back in the area where there's goat's beard, where there was water on the side of the trail. Years ago, Jim and I were riding on the Katy trail, and it was during the time of flooding, and there were so many toadlets, baby toads, hopping on the trail, we couldn't avoid running over them. Look at this goat's beard. So I'm gonna let the seeds fly like little parachutes. And here's some more. So we're coming up to Piers, which is a grocery store kind of in the middle of nowhere, in between Marthasville and Treloar. It's a place you can go to get a cold drink or something to eat if you need a rest. So we're coming up to Charette Creek. So I'm getting close to Marthasville, where we started the ride.